7-Eleven here in America is getting a redesign to be more mirrored to the Japanese 7-Eleven. But how do they plan to do this? Let's find out in today's Wall Street Journal video.
Rice balls.
Look at that. Michelin type of ramen.
Collaborations with famous restaurants like Santoka. Milk tea. This is 7-Eleven. In Japan.
Geez, in Japan there's so many more options.
But in the US, the company is more known for Slurpees and hot dogs.
Here in America, the food is really just sad. It's more of a grab-and-go style place. Japanese 7-Eleven definitely feels more elevated.
It's just not as appealing. My perception is people go in there when they need to.
That's a great point. People go into 7-Eleven in America because they need to. Whereas in Japan, they might want to go into 7-Eleven.
The world's largest convenience store chain has over 13,000 locations in North America alone and made over $72 billion in sales last year. But now, it's working to bring more Japanese inspiration to its American stores.
Seems like here in America, they're trying to change the vibe from gas station to elevated corner store.
Convenience stores have historically made their money selling tobacco and gas. But now, as cigarette sales continue to decline and many expect gas sales to slow, many are racing to find other sources of revenue and doubling down on food. But shifting a business this massive is a major undertaking.
Sounds like even more of a difficult proposition since 7-Eleven is definitely not known for their food in America.
This is the economics of 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven started as an American company, but it went bankrupt twice. Once in 1932 during the Great Depression, and again in 1990 as it struggled with debts.
Geez, for the 2 times they went bankrupt today, they're definitely an institution in America.
7-Eleven is now owned by a Japanese company, 7 & I Holdings.
A majority stake was bought by Ito Yokado, a Japanese supermarket chain that had been operating 7-Eleven stores in Japan for more than a decade. From the beginning, the Japanese owners said American 7-Eleven, both its central operations and its franchises, had a lot of catching up to do.
Adapt or die, unfortunately, seems like the options here.
Japanese model was a lot more data-driven. They would pore over what sold well at what time of day, break it down by gender and age, and use that to inform their next order decisions. The American system just wasn't as sophisticated as that.
It seems like a lot of stores do this overseas. Aldi is very popular for this. They get an item, they sell it. If it's selling super well, they make their own version of the item and sell it themselves. Aldi is using the data like 7-Eleven to get the edge on their competitors. But in today's day and age, it seems like a no-brainer to use data to make your business better.
There were some major differences between US and Japanese 7-Elevens. The US stores were typically larger and attached to gas stations. The Japanese stores didn't sell gas, but had a much wider array of fresh food. Japanese stores only stocked items that would sell quickly. They had a proprietary distribution system that made multiple shipments to stores every day. Orders were customized by store, based on sales data, demographic trends, and local weather forecasts. American 7-Eleven stores were getting 2 deliveries per week, and some items were never being purchased. When American operators began counting items in their stores, some found that 40% of their products were selling less than 1 unit per month. Now,
Seems like a distribution system problem and superfluous unneeded items on the shelf. Those two seem to be the main crippling differences between Japanese and American 7-Elevens.
American 7-Eleven has its own distribution system, where franchises place orders every day based on company recommendations of what's selling nationally and regionally, and their own store data.
They're making decisions every single day on what they're going to order based on what they understand the customer wants to purchase, what new items are going to be made available.
Okay, so now it seems like they're hyper-personalizing and using the data that they have to their fullest extent. When I go into the stores, though, it still seems like they have a ton of unnecessary items, but maybe that's just my perception.
One of the most interesting lessons that we've learned from 7-Eleven Japan is their approach to operations and to retailing, which they call Tappen Kanri. And Top and Conray is basically this idea that we localize our assortment to the needs of customers. We actually help our stores localize their assortment so that they have the right balance of a consistent assortment of products that consumers and customers would expect to see nationally, as well as items in the assortment that are perfectly appropriate for a given store's location.
Locally enjoyed food by hyper personalized data seems like the way of the future. And I have a feeling as we progress into the future, personalization is going to become hyper niched down to the individual level.
This is especially important when it comes to food. 7-Eleven Japan is known for its wide array of meal options.
You're not going to believe the choice of food in a convenience store.
American 7-Eleven also has a big food and beverage business. In total, it sold over $17 billion of food last year, about 24% of its overall sales. That included 315 million cups of coffee, 153 million Slurpees, and 99 million slices of pizza.
Yeah, we have food, but it's all grab and go stuff, super duper unhealthy drinks and snacks. It's definitely not like what I see pictures or videos of Japan convenience store 7-Elevens being like.
But next year, it hopes to make 1/3 of its sales from store brand goods, including food, up from less than 1/4 in 2022. That's particularly important given shifts in the convenience store industry.
So if you think about what convenience stores sell, there's fuel, there's tobacco products, and there's food and snacks. Gas is already a low margin business, and it's at risk long term if electric vehicle adoption increases over time. Tobacco, very profitable, but people are smoking less. Food, though, is a category where demand just isn't going away. So for convenience stores, it makes sense that they would want to double down on that.
Well, if you're trying to make money through food, up your food game. Stop serving all these packaged goods and things that have tons of sugar in them and horrible taste, and up your game to things that are healthier. That's the hardest part for me personally. I love going into convenience stores like 7-Eleven, but usually every option that I find are not that healthy because they're packed with sugar or they're super processed. So there's definitely room for improvement.
7-Eleven currently has 17 so-called commissaries around the country that make food for all of its U.S. locations. Now, it's working on upgrading them. It's partnering with Warabeya, a supplier for 7-Eleven Japan, to spearhead the effort. Warabeya's new factories in Hawaii, Texas, and Virginia can make a wider and more localized range of food than 7-Eleven has been able to stock in the past.
Things like being able to cook rice en masse, new protein capabilities, all which help 7-Eleven introduce new types of products in the food area to our customers. We recently launched a product that's a spicy miso ramen soup, not something you would typically think about being sold at a 7-Eleven.
It's adding a lot of items to its menu. The main question is how many customers will buy them.
Seems to me like these commissary distribution centers need to be more bountiful and more accessible to many parts of the nation. It seems like there needs to be more because more decentralized food closer to the source is better for everybody.
This is where data comes into the question.
When customers come into our stores, they're in an immediate consumption mindset.
Capitalizing on this is a key priority for the company, and it plans to use its massive data operation to do it. American 7-Elevens monitor daily sales, and for loyalty members, they collect demographic information on who's buying what. The company's loyalty program has 95 million members. Building on that, the company's investing in targeted advertising on screens and TVs throughout stores. That's to spur impulse buys.
They have data, but is the data skewed or biased? I don't know. I personally think to reflect Japanese 7-Elevens, there needs to be more of a fresh food option. I'm not sure if I should utter the name, but Wawa does a decent job with this. If you don't have Wawa in your area, it's basically like a gas station with a Subway inside. Wawa's relatively new to Florida, but I think they've got some sort of thing going down. It's not the healthiest, but they understand where the market is moving.
It helps not only 7-Eleven, but also our advertisers, our vendors, to target our customers at the point of purchase. So for example, in the morning, we may target our customers with a message around a hot cup of coffee and a donut. Whereas later in the day, we may target our customers with an advertisement that's around a snack and a beverage from our cold vault.
Hyper personalization for specific times of day seems like a good strategy, but it's really just a blanket strategy for certain times of the day. I think it really comes down to getting better and more people interested with the hyper personalized niche aspect of using the data to each individual. But how does that get accomplished? I'm not really sure.
And for potential customers who aren't at the store, there's delivery, the fastest growing part of the company's business. It's highly profitable for the company, since delivery orders tend to be for about double the amount of in-store purchases.
Delivery is crazy to me. Paying double the amount for something from the convenience store when convenience store items are usually already overpriced is just wild to me. But you do you.
How the brand's grown for nearly 100 years. Starts with, what's the customer want? Where do we think they're going? And how do we meet them where they're going?
A big question is whether American customers will match the enthusiasm 7-Eleven sees in some of its other markets.
In Asia, I think there is so much excitement around convenience stores and the types of food and snacks they offer. So if they can bring even a little bit of that excitement to the US,
We're gonna get some musubis.
that would be a great success.
The consumer always comes first. But if we can make American 7-Elevens a bit more like Japanese 7-Elevens, I think it's an overall win. If you have any opinions, make sure to comment them, and we can all cultivate our own oasis together. I'll see you in the next one.